Hello, and this is going to be the second episode of the ADHD is a Superpower podcast, and it's going to be about kinesthetic learning. Kinesthetic learning is basically when you learn by doing, learn by exploring, learn by getting your hands dirty, doing crafts by yourself. Not crafts, I mean in general, like learning by doing. And it's very, very beneficial for people with ADHD, because when you have ADHD, you tend to kind of sit and not be able to sit still. You get restless because your mind is racing ahead, and also it's highly distractible. So when you're just sitting there and passively listening to someone give you information, it means that you get very easily distracted. Whereas when you're actively doing something, like doing an experiment, doing some role play, putting things together and picking it apart, like actually getting your hands dirty with tasks, and also having the space to kind of explore, to not be told what to do, but to explore what's happening, to let your mind go down paths by itself, to have someone who's only just guiding you versus telling you what to do or how to think, really helps the learning. I myself, I find it much more easy to learn when I'm actually doing something else, or I'm more focused if I'm doing multiple things at the same time, like multitasking. And that might mean that, at the same time I've got like 5 different projects going on, and I just kind of flip from one to the other as and when my mood, when it suits me, when sort of so that kind of really helps me and keeps me happy and focused. And it's not really a conventional way of doing it, but the conventional way wouldn't suit me. So it's kind of learning to adapt the teaching style to the student. So kids with ADHD will not be happy sitting still, and they'll in a classroom and with other kids and having to learn a pace that's not, that's not really their pace. It's like a different pace, because their mind works in a slightly different way. So it means that you can't really expect to put them in a classroom with other kids whose minds work a little bit differently, because they're neurodivergent. It's just a difference in how your brain is wired. It's a physiological thing. It's not a disease. It's just a difference. It's a variation of the norm. And to call it ADHD and send them to a psychiatrist and give them drugs that don't really work and have side effects, like, I mean, the biggest side effect of ADHD medication is stunted growth. Do you really want to be giving kids medication when the solution is actually much simpler? I mean, it takes effort to set this up, but the solution is not to medicate them so they become normal. It's to adapt the teaching style to their individual needs. And actually, even kids without ADHD would benefit from that, because doing things like role play, experiments, getting kids to think for themselves rather than telling them A is equal to A or whatever, A is for apple, but actually showing them an apple and look and say, let them look at it, feel it, touch it, smell it, put it apart, open it, taste it, like actually using their senses and using their own imagination, their own curiosity, getting them out into the world instead of putting them in a classroom and showing them pictures and exposing them to this digital content, these illusions, these representations of of reality, rather than getting them out into nature, into the world, where they are free to explore the world by themselves under their own initiative, where their curiosity is sort of sparked, and also where they're active, you know, they're able to exercise some of that excess energy they have, that is largely a side effect of being cooped up, because in this world we live in now, there's not much scope for kids to just run around and play, because there's always risks regarding like the traffic and cars, and you know, even when kids do want to do stuff, it's usually the only places they can do active things tend to be like parking lots, which are very dangerous. You know, I see that all the time, and I'm like, this is so dangerous, because parking lot is the worst possible place you can do these kind of things. But the truth is, there aren't enough spaces where kids can just be active. And that is one of the biggest reasons why ADHD has become such a problem, because of all that excess energy that needs to be just released through physical movement. And no wonder kids who are expected to go to school and sit still for, 8 hours a day are diagnosed with ADHD. Of course they are. They're sitting still for 8 hours a day. And then they're coming home and doing homework, even more time sitting still and doing nothing physical. That is not how, that's not how you should learn. Not even those without ADHD. So the system is the one that needs to change. It's not about giving medication to eliminate neurodivergence. That's not the solution here. And also, you go to a 9 to 5, I'm talking about adults now, because this is such a big problem for adults too. You go to a 9 to 5 job where you're mostly sitting in front of a screen, and you're doing repetitive tasks that honestly a trained monkey could do, that a robot could do. And actually that is where the world is heading. People are being replaced by robots. Why? Because majority of jobs nowadays are jobs that a robot can do. Our creativity is being stifled, is being killed, because no robot can do what humans can, and that's our creativity. But artists are named dreamers. They're labeled dreamers, and they're idealists. They're people who don't take life seriously or don't know what the real world is. And this is kind of the criticism I've heard, that I'll never, my writing, I'll never make it. I need a stable job, a sensible job to support myself financially so that I can. But the thing is, that sensible job ended up robbing me of my creativity and made me extremely unhappy, all because I was afraid of not having money. But actually, not having money has led me to so much fulfillment in a way, because I've learned so much, and I've also learned how beautiful human connection can be, because that I've learned that why do you need money? You need money to get things. But if you connect to someone else, you are able to give each other, like, that you can have a transaction of energy that is priceless. Like today, I spent some time with someone who basically felt that they didn't have a connection that helped them explore a certain part of themselves, that like a bit of a nerdy part of themselves that most people would judge. And I didn't, because I have that same nerdy part, that I get that same emotional fulfillment when I talk about that nerdy part of myself. And by the way, this was about Dungeons and Dragons. Again, an amazing creative game involving role play that is like so good in terms of creativity. I have never played. I'm still working up the courage to kind of get involved in it, but I'm learning from someone who runs a coffee shop. He's a photographer. He runs a coffee shop, like to kind of fund himself as he explores his passions, but he also has this secret hidden room where he runs Dungeons and Dragons games. He runs other Star Wars board games. He's also building from scratch a game, and I'm actually like maybe going to help with that, with the writing part, because he's dyslexic. And he basically said, you know, I have all these ideas, but I'm not able to like write it out. I'm good at talking about it, but I'm not good at writing it down. And I said, well, I can definitely help you with that because I'm great at writing stuff down, not so much the talking aspect. So he ended up saying, okay, why, you know, it helps me to talk about this stuff. It gets my creativity going. So we basically just had a chat. He was telling me, getting excited all about all this. I was learning so much from him as well, because he's actually making the game from scratch. And he gave me so many ideas for my own craft project that I'm working on, because I'm like working on some like craft as well. So we just had this exchange of information, and that was all. You know, there was no money involved there, apart from like this one coffee I bought from him in the morning first when I went there just to work on my writing. I'm doing some creative writing as well, and that's how this whole thing got started. But it was just us connecting and having an exchange of energy, exchange of ideas, exchange of support, exchange of passion. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, when I stopped chasing money and financial stability, I started learning the deeper truths of life, about connection and about helping each other on a much more basic level, on a foundation that is rock solid. Because money, after all, is just a piece of paper. If you actually think about the value of it, it's worthless. It's only valuable because of the value that society places on it. It's a social construct. It's not even like a coin that inherently the metal has some value. And you know, things like credit cards and debit cards, that's not even a real thing. It's not even something tangible that you can touch. You know, I was talking to someone the other day who was like, you know, I'm so angry because I got locked out of my bank account. And I actually had a couple of times where I was also like not able to access anything, any of my accounts, and I didn't have cash. Or sometimes I had cash, but I wasn't able to use it because our world has become such that it's become reliant on credit cards or debit cards. You know, even public transport system, you can't use cash anymore. You can't use coin. And I had several circumstances where I had to walk hours, or not, frankly, just not be able to go somewhere because I didn't have a card, or I didn't have money in my bank account, even though I had some cash, but I couldn't use it. So I think that kind of changed my perspective a lot. Also, this whole thing reminds me of The Host by Stephanie Meyer. It's a less popular work of hers, but it's about alien invasion, and it's about, in it, there's a community of human survivors who, and in that community there is no money. It is basically everyone works together for themselves and for each other. And it's a very inspiring system. And it shows that a different way of life is possible. And I am going a little bit into idealism again here, but that's how it is. So, what else did I want to say? So yeah, like ADHD is not, it's actually a superpower in my opinion, and it's about adapting the learning to suit that superpower rather than tamping it down and binding it and expecting. It's sort of like expecting a I don't know, what's a good comparison. It's like expecting a rocket to act like a bus, to go at the speed of a bus, because everyone else around is a bus. So the rare rockets, they're being expected to act like a bus. And that is the most stupid thing you can think of. Rockets need to be allowed to be like rockets. Buses need to be allowed to be like buses. Until next time.